Good evening. My name is Katherine Tucker, and I will be presenting my prospectus on how COVID-19 affected the consumer. So why is this topic important to study? It's important to study and understand because it can give us preventative measures for the future. If this were to ever happen again, we need to have the tools in our toolbox to prepare us. And hopefully with these studies, past and present, and I'm sure in the future, we will have the tools we need. It can also give us a better understanding of why panic buying occurred, which we all know was a main thing last year with toilet paper, other items, etc. Has this research been done before? Yes, of course. COVID-19 piqued all of our interests, and especially with the panic buying, I'm sure we all wondered what in the world, why are people buying so much toilet paper for 2 weeks worth? Why can't I find any toilet paper? So yes, there is research available, and it was available not long after the pandemic was introduced to the world. And most of the research done focuses on the 4 points that I will discuss in my literature review, but I'll just go ahead and tell you that they are panic buying versus hoarding, which are the big things. Media influence and how that played a part. Herd effect, as in peer influence. And psychological discovery and future preparations. So to continue on with the previous research done, a lot of it focuses on the psychological impact COVID-19 had on the buyer. And it discusses how our brains can become overwhelmed and panicked, and we then look to our surroundings, aka the herd effect, to look for temporary comfort or controllables in our environment. Meaning, as I said, we look to media, peers, really just anything to kind of give us a path to follow to help control what seems to be uncontrollable. So, the introduction to my literature review is, since the pandemic began, this type of panic buying has started to be researched more thoroughly as we began to see, as Lato puts it, unusual retail consumer behavior such as hoarding toilet paper and food, which is not a shocker to read this because we all know that this happened. Research also wanted to know and understand how the consumer decides to stockpile items. Is it because of the media? Is it psychological? Or is it something else? So this topic needs to be studied in order to better understand and possibly prevent another wave of panic buying that was seen in the spring of 2020. So as I said before, my actual literature review is broken down into 4 sections, and that is panic buying versus hoarding, the differences between those. So panic buying is buying a lot of something at one time out of fear or concern, which we saw a lot of. But it kind of led into almost a hoarding, which is collecting large amounts of something over time and keeping it. So there's kind of a fine line there between panic buying and hoarding, since a lot of us were told we needed to have about 2 weeks worth of items stocked. The second section is the herd effect, which I mentioned is peer influence, and also cognitive overload, so observing surroundings to get answers to help control an uncontrollable, what seems like. The third section is media influence, and as Arafat and Rivas say, it gives a threatening perception from the media, which causes the population to go into a panic mode, and it is a risk perception. And lastly, psychological discovery and future preparations. So taking control of the situation, by buying too much of an item, such as toilet paper, other food items. But there's still a lot of observing left to do in this subject of panic buying. So lastly, methodology. I noticed a lot of the previous research done was done through interviewing. To me, that seems the best way to go about this type of research, especially it being such a new topic, such as panic buying, in the way that we saw it. So I thought I would do the same type of methodology by interviewing a random group of people. I don't have a certain number in mind, and I don't have a certain age group in mind. But I do have 4 questions that I know I would ask them, and they're listed in front of you, and they say, did you purchase any items in bulk last year that would last you at least 2 weeks? Because again, remember, at least in Georgia, we were advised to have enough items to last us 2 weeks. Secondly, what items did you buy in bulk? Third, what influenced you to purchase enough items in one trip to last you for 2 weeks? And lastly, prior to this pandemic, did you ever purchase items in bulk? And that is really the only direction I could think of for this type of research. And here are my resources that I use for my literature review. So there's all 11 of them listed there. And that's it. Thank you for listening, and hope you have a great evening.